Hello, my high def friends. Just a second. Greetings, unsettled souls, and welcome to the Correct Views. Sam IB to Gangi, reporting for the Media Speaks, and we're going to jump right into it. Friends, the Fukushima Diaries reporting rather alarming news recently. 10 sieverts per hour from a container to ship to Taiwan, Hanmoko Pier in Yokohama. 4.5 to 7, I think it's sieverts per hour, I believe, was measured from a container on 4/13 of 2014. So this is extremely recent. It said it was to be shipped from Hanmoko Pier to Taiwan, but it was not announced that what was specifically in the container. So let me ask you something. We're looking at a couple scenarios so far into this story, the way I see it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we are looking at a scenario where either they willingly are trying to ship something that is extremely radioactive out of the country, and without announcing it, for what reasons we can only guess at. Obviously, part of the cover-up. Does it stop there? Who knows? And the other option in front of us is perhaps there is nothing in Japan that is not this radiated that they could send whatever this particular thing was. If anybody can let me know what the size of the shipping vessel was compared to other vessels and how many of them are extant in Japan, that would help us figure out if that was a factor or not. It says the employee of Japan Post Holdings detected the radiation level of over 5 sieverts an hour before loading, which is higher than the safety limit of shipping. Yeah, 1 sievert, I think 1 microsievert an hour can be horrible for you. A firehouse received the report and they measured over 6 sieverts per hour from the container too. The firehouse bans approaching the container and is planning to investigate the issue. Just one more story on what an abysmal, remarkably bad idea nuclear power is. It is not the answer to anything. It is, in fact, the road to destruction. It is the worst possible thing. While we're on the topic of nuclear, we might as well go to a nuclear of a different kind. This is from theweek.com. If a nuclear bomb exploded in downtown Washington, what would you do? Well, you're probably thinking, well, that's not going to happen. President Obama says he was worried about it. It says, while it might be a funny headline, since the president worries more about the threat of terrorist improvised nuclear device going off in a major American city than anything that Russia can throw at us, and there's a link for that, I was wondering if the government had had denied to share with citizens any tips, for surviving something on their own in case of a black swan event. So what I'm going to do is go ahead here, let you read the articles for all the nuts and bolts of it. But in a nutshell, this is what you should and should not do. It says, did you know that the worst, capitalized, thing for someone to try to do in the aftermath of a nuclear explosion. Oh, no, I hate when screens have pop-ups. In the aftermath of a nuclear explosion that they survive is to get in a car and drive away. Your instinct is to drive away if you survive the blast. Well, that's not so. My guess is due to the amount of radioactivity that can get in through the car as opposed to cements in a basement. 2, unless you're within about a third to a mile and a half radius, or a third to a half mile radius of ground zero, and the shelter options are poor, the best thing for someone to do is to find a stable location inside of a well-built apartment or office building, the majority of which will remain standing outside that half-mile radius, and stay there for 24 hours. That is 1 day for you Lady Gaga fans. And if you were very close to ground zero and you did survive, and it says that a lot of folks will, the best thing for you to do is A, take immediate shelter somewhere because fallout will rain down on you if you do not. Wait 1 hour. C, then walk about a half dozen blocks laterally until you find intact large buildings to shelter you. 3, the electromagnetic pulse from a ground burst will not, in fact, knock out all types of communication. Some, maybe. So don't just think because it went off that All phones are going to be out. Some will, in fact, still be working. If you live in a single family house with thin walls, your chances of surviving in the aftermath of an immediate blast and not getting cancer later, that's important, are exponentially higher if you seek shelter in a bigger building, even one that might literally be next door. 5. Rescuers should not put on radiation protection gear if it will slow them down. So long as the fallout has stopped falling, they're best advised to turn out in normal gear. I question that one. Anybody with more knowledge, comment line. Thousands of people will die from the blast effects. Almost all, about 96%, of the other potential casualties could be avoided if people understood the basics of what to do in the event of mass radiation exposure, which is why I'm doing this. 7. Did I mention that the worst place to be in the immediate aftermath of a nuclear blast is in the car trying to get away? The so-called DFZ, dangerous fallout zone, will extend out as much as 20 miles, and it is likely to be extremely narrow. If it's not, that means the concentration of radioactive particles will be lower. The vector and location of this zone depends on the wind, and its size will shrink with every passing hour. 8. Penetrating trauma from broken glass is probably the largest treatable cadre of blast injuries. So obviously you're going to want to stock up on things to prevent bleeding to death if that was to be the case. Grim that we even have to go over that. And a lot of people have wondered if Obama is just, saying that, using it as a scare tactic. Well, you never know. So we've gone over at least a few of the do's and don'ts here at the Correct Views. Guys, do me a favor. When you are in Canton, Ohio, check out the Arcadia Grill. Why? Because their food is delicious. Go ahead and tell Maria Sam sent you. Ask about fish. Maybe ask about spaghetti. Breakfast. Delicious breakfast buffet on the weekends. Full bar that knows how to make a drink correctly. The Arcadia Grill in downtown Canton. Also, check out the work of Mike McLaughlin. His email address, archangel_44703 at yahoo.com. Or you can use archangel44703 at facebook.com. Why would you want to do that? Because he is an excellent writer. He's working on the novel. He's got a number of short stories for sale, poetry. If you're a reader, do me a favor, go there and look at the work of Mike McLaughlin and let him know that you heard about it on the Correct Views. A couple more that I want to get to. A little bit shorter show today. RT, Pentagon ponders logistical nightmare of Afghan withdrawal. We all know we got into Afghanistan, where it appears now that we have made so many enemies in the Middle East that countries that would normally allow us their avenues through their countries to get out of Afghanistan have now said no. And, of course, Afghanistan is landlocked. So, you got land and air. That's your options. Ranked as America's most challenging military action since World War II, the U.S. is faced with the risk of transporting millions of pieces of military assets out of Afghanistan as possible exit routes, including through Russia, are blocked. And again, what do I think we should have done on Russia? Same thing we did. It's not our war. If the Ukrainians are too stupid to govern themselves and they want to be part of Russia or the bankrupt EU, then I have no sympathy for them. The U.S. military is learning the hard way from its lengthy experience in Afghanistan, and that it is so far easier to get bogged down in a foreign adventure than it is to extricate oneself from it. Landlocked, isolated, and surrounded on all sides by potential enemies, Washington's withdrawal of its troops and equipment from the Central Asian country by the end of 2014 is beset with numerous obstacles. One U.S. military planner, it says, compared the moving operation to the minute logistics of transporting a mail shipment. The FedEx model, if you will. Tony Schaefer, a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, they said to RT, "You got to know where it's at, what it's doing, where it's moving, and what's going to happen when it gets somewhere. Indeed, the sheer amount of troops and equipment that needs to be brought home is staggering. Listen to this, people, your tax dollars here. In addition to 30,000 soldiers, the Pentagon must oversee the return of 48,000 vehicles and a total of 81.5 million items valued at how much? How about $33 billion? The main problem confronting Pentagon planners is choosing the best exit route, an option that has substantially decreased thanks in large part to Washington's failure on a diplomatic front, for example, with Russia over the ongoing political crisis gripping the Ukraine. One of the most reliable methods of moving military equipment in and out of Afghanistan has been via the Northern Distribution Network, 3,000 miles of winding railroad that passes through Central Asia to Kazakhstan, Russia, and through parts of Northern Europe to the sea. That's as long as the U.S., 3,000 miles. That's coast to coast. In fact, 75% of military supplies into Afghanistan were delivered by this very slow but very reliable route. However, recent violent protests in the Ukraine capital of Kyiv, which led to the overthrow of the government and Crimea voting in the referendum to become part of the Russian Federation, like idiots, an event that Russia has attempted to label as Russia military invasion, have put a severe strain on Russia-U.S. relations. One result of the diplomatic breakdown is that Russia refuses to permit NATO military cargoes from passing through its territory. We've done the same thing due to the drone strikes that we've done in Pakistan. It mentions that in here. We've bombed Pakistanis so much that now their government doesn't want to help us any. Another option for the Pentagon, it says, is to airlift troops and equipment out of Afghanistan, but this method is fraught with cost concerns. Yeah, you imagine so? Let's hear how bad it is. According to the former head of the UN's Transportation Command, General Duncan McNabb, military airlifts are 10 times more expensive per pound than transport over land. At the same time, this method of transport is not without its share of risks. Aren't you glad you just paid your taxes? Last April, a Boeing 747 departing from Bagram Airfield, the largest U.S. military base in Afghanistan, crashed moments after takeoff. Experts believe they have heavy vehicles on board, and the aircraft broke free from their restraints and caused the aircraft to lose control due to shifting. So basically, we were welcomed into certain parts of the Middle East, and now they hate us so much that they're not even going to let us get our gear out of there. Bad diplomacy, people. Bad diplomacy. Again, I don't think that we needed to get into a war with Russia, but I do think, diplomatically speaking, we could have handled it much better. Anybody could have handled it better. Guys, that brings us to the dumdee of the day. That's right. Teacher suspended as student science projects deemed to be imitation weapons. How many people have watched this happen? Schools getting the dumdee awards from this show. Over and over again. And we're getting further and further away from teaching anything that matters and deeper into this kind of mind rot, teaching you to conform at all costs. Students at a public high school in Los Angeles are campaigning for United School District officials to reinstate a popular teacher after he was suspended when 2 of his students submitted science projects that administrators said resembled guns. The LA Times reports that Greg Schiller was sentenced to teacher jail with pay in February from the Grand Arts High School for supervising the building, research, and development of imitation weapons, according to administrators. Oh, fear. Wait till you hear the fear. As part of the science fair, one student created an air cannon that was capable of propelling small objects, while another put together an electromagnetic battery-powered coil gun. The former was designed to be operated using air pressure. However, no source of air pressure was ever connected to the device, so it could not have been fired. Oh my God, but it was there and it was a gun. The device was reportedly similar to the one that fired marshmallows. Yes, deadly marshmallows. We all know that the NRA is concerned with these things. And again, all jokes aside, that's what they want. They want us to think that they want to raise our kids to believe that all things that shoot anything should be outlawed, so that only the guns that can belong to criminals and the government. Democide, look it up. It's the government killing its people. It killed more people last century than anything else. The device was reportedly similar one that fired deadly marshmallows in 2012 as part of the White House Science Fair. The horror. When administrators investigated, they impounded the device as evidence and also confiscated the coil gun. Mr. Schiller was removed from his position after school employees saw the air pressure project and told officials that it looked like a scary weapon. You look like a freaking moron. Schiller himself says that he never saw the completed project and had only seen the blueprints and photos. As far as we can tell, he's being punished for teaching science, said Warren Fletcher, president of the United Teachers of Los Angeles. The class is essentially now a free period, advanced placement psychology student Leanna Kleinman told reporters. Advanced placement, so now one of the smartest people in the school lost a teacher. Why? Because the sub does not have the psych background and can't help us with the work. Schiller himself, who says he has not received an official explanation for his suspension, has warned that his students are suffering from the knee-jerk reaction of his jerk, I might add, administrators. This is really hurting my students more than anything else, he said. I would have never done anything to put up a situation where a student could be harmed. And again, we've seen it time and time, and nauseating time again. It happened, there was a zero tolerance policy all through the country, anything remotely related to a weapon. Thankfully, there are states that are pulling up legislation to prevent these kinds of stupid things from occurring. I also want to mention a hat tip to Mark Dice. I didn't even put it in the title. Hopefully I'll remember to add it. He got this out right away. This is just hit the news as I was set to go live. Michael Rupert, dead of suicide. He was an early 911 truther, and Mark hypothesizes that he got so far into just the depression of fighting the evil that we're all out here fighting that it just broke him. Who knows? He could have had a heartbreak for all I know. But one of the first people to prove that the buildings were detonated was Michael Rupert. So it sucks that he unfortunately took his own life, because that's one less truth teller and one less freedom fighter that we have. Friends, you're listening to a somewhat shorter Correct Views episode today. I want to give a real quick shout out to Wizard Ink. Look at this. Got the yellow on it, got the green on it. Let me make sure my low def people can see it. Not a sponsor of the show, but I wanted to give him a shout out anyhow, because he's doing really, really good artwork. And the tattoo's about done. Might need some yellow touched up here and there where the keys aren't, but Wiz Ink in Louisville, Ohio. Friends, Correct Views, Sam I.B. to Gangi, reporting for the Media Speaks. Go to themediaspeaks.com and look up the work of Kyle, Court, D-Lake, and myself, and you will be very, very happy that you did so. Lastly, you are the live deaf people, right here, blah, blah, you. If I'm pointing to you, that's the high def. It's on the Media Speaks. If I'm not pointing at you and you didn't see it live, you might as well go to the more high def version, mediaspeaks.com. Good night, friends. God bless.